Varsity House Podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Crawford. We got a special guest, Cleveland Browns kicker, Cade York. Cade, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So obviously training camp's starting pretty soon. We're out here at Greyhawk Golf Course in LaGrange. Beautiful course. Make sure, if you're in Cleveland, make sure you come check it out. But obviously off season right now, heading into the season, it's approaching very fast. Kind of just talk about how you've, taken time in this off season to relax, recoup, but also stay on your grind to, continue to work at your craft.
Oh, yeah. So, right after season, last year being rookie season, that's the longest season by far. Because you go straight, you had my junior year at LSU. You start kicking in spring ball and you really don't stop throughout the whole season. And then you have season end and you automatically go into training. So I can't stop, take a break from kicking and just keep going. So I go through that whole spring. And then you're going to the NFL, so you play the whole season. So it's it's almost like a year and a half straight of kicking. So right after when season ended, I basically stopped kicking for a month and a half, almost 2 months, just to get a full rest. But working out and all that stuff, went back to Texas, and then once that time was up, it was full go, training, kicking twice a week. Working back into a full swing and going through that and then coming up into OTAs. So I'm back into the full, by this time it's you're getting close to being full season form, trying to peak at the right time, getting into season. So I'm basically back to full go.
Mm-hmm. That 2 months right after the season, what did you get into? Obviously, you probably got out of Cleveland. Weather wasn't great, so you wanted to probably take a trip to, somewhere vacation with family or friends or anything like that. So what'd you do right after that?
So right after I got back, I went straight back to Texas, basically, where I'm from, just being around family and stuff like that. I actually didn't really vacation that much. I went to LA for the NFL PA trip, and then I also went to Hawaii for the NFL PA meeting of all the reps and stuff like that. They gave me an invite to go sit down and watch and learn, but it turned into a week-long vacation, basically, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, really just got to play some golf. Wasn't that much in Texas at that time because it's still pretty cold, but that and just hang out, chill. And honestly, I like getting back into working out hard right when season's over, because in season there's also that maintaining idea, you don't want to kill your leg and stuff like that. So I kind of got into some heavier lifting at that point, and then again working back into it now. So.
And so, obviously, the Browns last year didn't make the playoffs. And so, how, much did that, did you watch any football at all, any playoff football, or did you kind of, relieve yourself from it?
So, honestly, even in season, I don't watch any football. Yeah. I feel one, as my, being a kicker, there's not much merit to watching anyways, because it's what am I going to learn about my game from watching, other people's games, really? Other than, admiring other kickers and stuff like that. So I've never been big on watching that much football. When I was in college, I only watched the NFL. I didn't watch college football. And now being in the NFL, I'll go back and watch college football because I don't want to be competing with people nonstop. So I'll just watch people I'm not competing with. So yeah, really once the season was over, I didn't watch much. I watched the Super Bowl and stuff like that, or I'd catch a glimpse if I was hanging out somewhere, but it wasn't I was oh, I need to go home and watch the game kind of thing. Yeah, just kind of get a break from it.
No, that's dope. I feel especially, because you talk about the long off season, getting down at LSU and then having to train and then getting drafted and then obviously going through a full season. Kind of now comparing those two off seasons, what makes you excited, to come into your second season, not after to, do all that stuff?
Yeah, well, there's different sides of it. One, I've never had this long without actually some sort of real football. Because in college, spring ball is it gets pretty serious. You're full padded, you're going at it. Not that I'm going at it, but it's that environment and you're around it. And the NFL OTAs is it's basically we're not wearing any pads. You barely wear helmets. It's pretty relaxed. So it doesn't feel like a real practice. So it's I'm almost anxious to get started back up and excited because it's been so long. And there's also the fact that, I know what to expect. You're going in, you go from college to NFL, you think, all these new expectations, different city, different stadium, bunch of different stuff. So you're kind of just treading water to figure out what's going on. And now I feel all right, I'm swimming, I'm know what I'm doing. I know what to expect. So now I can just prepare like I need to and go and do what I got to do.
Mm-hmm. And then even looking at it to a point where you talk about spring ball and how you kind of liked it for skill position players, and my man, spring ball is awful. So I'm sure they enjoy like all the months now. Yeah. But even getting back, to OTAs and with the Browns and things, and like going into your second year. Obviously now, this year Deshaun Watson will be playing the full year. There's a lot of weapons on the offensive side of ball that are coming back, but are also new, like Elijah Mitchell, the addition of Marquise Goodwin, but also returning DPJ, who had a great year, and then also Amari Cooper who had 1,000 year. Obviously that matters to you because you'll be, kicking a lot of extra points or field goals, hopefully a lot more extra points, but kind of just, talk about just the evolution of the offense and how they've done so far this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, as knowledgeable as my kicker IQ goes when it comes to that stuff, I will say cultural-wise in the locker room, it's been like a lot more positive energy. You don't see as much negative. You have like a bunch of new guys in the locker room that have been coming from winning programs or like just guys with like that kind of mentality. So it's like a lot more like pick people up and like pull them along with you rather than like people doing their own individual stuff. As far as it goes, like free agency, our offensive weapons seem like almost like how can we have this many weapons on a team? Because like especially in the wide receiver room, like we honestly had a pretty good room last year. We didn't lose too much, and now we have we got Marquise and Elijah and stuff like that. So it's kind of crazy that we're able to have all those people. And even on the defensive side, we got the D line, got that many more guys there. Got Juan, got other guys. I don't want to miss anybody, but it's cool to see how it's changed just in a matter of an off season, and that culturally wise, I think that's the biggest change, along with just adding more weapons. So it's pretty cool.
I think when we talk about you talk about the culture difference between, college football, but also NFL football. You talk about like free agency, some guys who, came in, some guys who may have left. Kind of just touch on that a little bit to where you were at LSU for 3 years, but touch on just like the culture within the locker room and the relationships you're able to build in college versus the ones in NFL. I'm sure it was a shock to you when you first got there in the locker room last year.
I mean, by far the biggest difference is in college you have basically a 4-year age circle or like gap between the freshman and the senior. So you're all basically in the same stage of life. So that just alone, I feel like it's naturally more built-in camaraderie and like just like that college like feeling of like college game day where it's just like fans are going crazy, tailgating, all that stuff. So you're just like amped up. So I feel like all that stuff comes naturally. In the NFL, you have guys that 22 to 40 basically, 40 not very often, but you have guys in very different stages of life. So I'm coming in as a rookie. I'm 21. The two punters that were there are 25 and 26. One's married, has a kid. The snapper's 31, I think. I think Charlie's 32 now, but has married with 3 kids. It's like it's automatically like it's harder to make that connection of you can't just fake camaraderie. You can't fake that energy. So I think it's a lot harder to build that chemistry in the NFL because you have guys like everyone's like on different contract years. Some people are trying to make money. Some people are trying to like do really well themselves to get that big contract. Some guys are living off the big contract they have. So I think just naturally there's more like pieces to fit into the puzzle. So it's automatically harder to get that chemistry. So I think that's the biggest change I've seen from last year, this year on like the Browns. And then, yeah, obviously a huge difference from LSU to.
So you probably just, in your time, who have like stuck out to you and been those leaders that have helped with that camaraderie and the culture within the locker room?
Honestly, last year, I think one of the most like underrated like guys on team was Jacoby Brissett. I know he's not with the Browns anymore, but Jacoby was awesome. He stepped in, and honestly, I think he should be a starting quarterback somewhere. That guy played really well, and he was a great leader, honestly. And then I really like A-Walk. A-Walk was really good. He ended up getting hurt really early in the season, which I think was one of our biggest losses because not only was he a great player, I think he was a great leader and had a great mindset like that. But I think it's going to be good, especially this year, going through like a whole spring. Deshaun's going to be able to be in the building, or he's been in the building the whole time, and then get to like have a whole off season to like build his side of leadership because he wasn't able to be in the locker room or around the team. until like halfway through the season. So that'll be big. Having your quarterback as a big leader at the board. So I think that's going to be a big like step up.
Now, far as a specialist, who's the leader in that room? Are you the vocal one?
I mean, I'm always vocal just because I talk too much. But Charlie is definitely the leader in that group. He's going into year 8 or 9 now, and he's been on the Browns the entire time. He's definitely the leader in that group. But then we have other leaders like in special teams in general, just like board players. Like Jordan Kanashik is a really good linebacker that's played a lot of special teams for us. The last year, and he got signed again. That's hard to list them all. Toffee, D'Anthony Bell. We brought in Matt Adams and Michael Ford, like it'd be good guys to play. So we got a lot of good guys, and then having Bubba, like he'll be a leader in special teams as well, just being the coordinator. So I think we got a lot of guys with us.
Yeah, talk about Bubba a little bit more and what that addition will, bring to the team, because he is a Cleveland guy, former Cleveland guy. So kind of just, talk about how maybe just his relationship to Cleveland and just his understanding of Cleveland will help you, but also help the entire unit.
Well, he's already helped me just being a different type of energy for me. He's been like, I'll get worked up and want to work really hard and like fix stuff and like work on stuff nonstop. But he's kind of like the kind of guy that'll calm me down. Like, hey, like just because you had an off day this day or just because you're kicking really well this day, like it doesn't matter. Like who you are, the kicker is enough. Like you are good at what you do. He'll calm me down and like kind of just be the other side to me that like I'll be up here, he'll be down here, and we'll kind of level it out. And then for like special teams in general, one, he's played at a very high level because he played for so long with the Browns, the 49ers, and I think one more team, I can't remember who it was. So just having that side that he understands the game so well. And also the fact that he's been through it on a special teamers before, that he knows how to run practice, what he needs from guys, the type of personalities he needs on the field, and just like bringing like a lot of energy, but very positive energy all the time. That it's very like it's a good environment to learn in. So like guys aren't gonna go out in the field and be lost. They're learning in practice in a positive environment that they're just gonna cut it loose on game day. So it's gonna be cool.
And that's just on the topic of like mentorship and coaching. I want to talk about Phil Dawson a little bit. How much has he like helped you out? How much has he, not so much like influenced, your career, so for the short career you've had so far with the Browns, but how much has like, maybe some of his tactics or maybe, even like the Browns or the flag in the stadium or anything like that.
Yeah.
How much has that, helped you a little bit?
So I talked to him about a week or so after I got drafted, I'm pretty sure. And it was really like a 30, 40-minute phone call. And it was a great talk. But I think one of the biggest things as he talked to me about was like it's especially playing in Cleveland and how tough it can be with figuring out the win. It's like you have to figure it out on your own to some degree, because the knowledge he's given me on the phone was at the end of his career when he had played in Cleveland for however long it was. And that knowledge was built up over time. I think one of the biggest things he talked to me is like you have to do that on your own. And you have to figure out what works for you. He's like, yeah, I can tell you all my calculations with the wind and like this flag and stuff like that, but it's almost for me, I think early on, especially, that's a little bit overanalyzing and like putting a lot in my head. And I think at first I need to just go out there and hit the ball well. And I think I struggled with that a little bit last year, just trying to be over technical and step my game up to a whole new level, to where at some points I hit some of the best balls I've ever hit, but also it became so much that sometimes I just like blow up and have a bad kick. So stepping into next year, knowing what to expect and stuff like that, I just want to trust the process a little bit more and let the outcomes come, rather than trying to force the outcomes and ignoring the process at sometimes. So talking to him, he just like definitely he gave me some tips on certain types of like wins and which directions coming out of are worse than others and stuff like that. But again, a lot of it is like I can't just like write it all down on a piece of paper, take it out in the field and look around like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. That's what you're talking about. And I kind of have to feel it out myself to some degree.
Now touch on, because we talked about this a little bit when we were playing, touch on the actual, like, the way the stadium is actually built.
Yeah.
And how the wind comes into the stadium, because obviously as like a fan, we know like, okay, it may be hard to kick in Cleveland. Like the stadium isn't, built, the best for kickers. But like you kind of understand it a little bit more in depth than, than a normal fan would.
So what I've come to understand, and it's more just based off like experience and like where other stadiums I've played in, is that for the most part, you'll see stadiums that are either level all the way around. you'll see horseshoe stadiums that have like one side that's lower, or you'll have stadiums that kind of have opposite corners open. And the Browns are a little different. It's the only stadium I've played in like it that the corners on the same side of the field are open, and it's open from the lake to the city. So it makes it to where there's an awkward clash of wind. It's not like they're just a circle. It makes it to where, one, there's different layers. There's like 3 different layers, honestly. It changes nonstop. And it just makes it to where it'll change direction pretty often, just depending on how fast the wind goes. So say like 15 miles an hour on the dog pound side, it's probably blowing right to left. But if it speeds up or slows down, it might switch and go left to right one direction. So like you'll see the flags kind of changing nonstop during the game. There's even sometimes they're like both blowing out or they're both blowing in.
Right.
So it can be kind of weird sometimes. So it's not that the wind's always blowing like 80 miles an hour. Like the Saints game, it was gusting up to 55. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was freezing at that game, by the way.
It was freezing. But it's more the fact that it's hard to tell yourself, it's hard to just commit to a line because it could change in the matter of when I get my aiming spot to when I'm about to kick the ball. It's like 8 seconds. So like that could, and the wind could change. I had times where it did change last year. And it's at that point you really just have to hit your best ball so that it holds its line better. Because if you hit the ball just off a little bit, the wind's going to take it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the point where it can be iffy sometimes. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah. Because we're talking about it, it's like, oh, like, I think I saw you just, or someone else was saying, like, just go get it. Because I feel like it used to be in the NFL, like, just go get another kicker, go get a kicker off the street. To where, like, now I feel like, this could be just, like, ignorant of me, like, not paying attention to the games much. But I feel like kickers now are, you know, a higher priority because maybe it is hard. Well, I would say move the extra point back a little bit. And so kind of just talk about the shape of the shape that a kicker has now taken, you know, in today's game of football.
Yeah. Well, I think the best way you can look at it is, like, I don't think you ever see someone win a Super Bowl with a kicker that's not performing well. And I'm not saying that you can't get to playoffs or something like that with an underperforming kicker because you can have a super, but at some point a kicker is going to decide a game in a season. Maybe not like a walk-off game winner, but if he misses 2 kicks in a game, like, you might not win that game because NFL games are so close. And I think it may be different in other places. Like, in a place where in Cleveland, like, it might be super confusing to kick. Like, you go in there and you just, like, I don't know what's going on. I think there is merit to keeping someone so that he can learn, like, especially if you know that person has talent. But if there's someone, like, if you're playing in an indoor and a guy's just not performing, it's not like you need to, like, the guy needs to learn the indoor. He's just not performing. And that's not, like, a shot to anybody at all because they're great kickers all across the league. But there are places that you do have to learn how to kick there, and it's different. And for someone that might be a veteran that's kicked in a bunch of different, like, stadiums, it might be easier for them to step in for a job like that. But it's definitely, you can't win it all, like Super Bowl and everything, if you don't have someone that's performing.
Now, even, like, thinking back before, you know, like, I want to talk about draft a little bit, and then we'll get back to where we are. But thinking about, you know, coming out as a junior, which is, I feel like as a kicker, which is crazy because, you know, usually kickers probably don't leave early and get drafted as high as you did. Did you have a thought that Cleveland would draft you? And then, you know, did you even take a look at, like, some of the stadiums that you might be kicking in or that you might be playing in?
Yeah, so I knew had an idea that Cleveland was drafting me pretty early on in the process. Obviously, there's a lot of things to go through. Like, you still have to do well your pro day, to do well private workouts. You can't just, like, crap the bed and, like, not do well and still think you're going to get drafted. But I've also heard stories of guys, like, think they're going this one place, they drop 4 rounds to go some random other place, or, like, you've never even talked to this team and then you get a random call, like, you're going here. Like, I've heard stories all over the place, so I really tried to keep my expectations like I had no idea where I was going. But as he got close to the draft, based off where Cleveland had draft pick and stuff like that, I knew I was either late 3rd compensatory picks to, like, early 5th is what I had kind of learned and been told. And based off Cleveland had a bunch of picks in that area, so I kind of figured that's where I was going to end up going. But yeah, coming out as a junior, it was weird because going into college, like, I changed so quickly from soccer to football that it was like going to LSU was kind of out of nowhere, relatively. And it was already so cool to do that. And then when I got to LSU, it wasn't like I didn't think about the NFL, but it wasn't like I'm going to LSU because I want to go to the NFL. Because it was kind of like a late realized dream to go to LSU. Like, it wasn't like I thought I was going to play professional soccer at first. So then after my sophomore year, I had a good season. Out of nowhere, people are telling me, if you do that again, you might want to leave. Like, agents are reaching out and stuff like that. And it was kind of like ignorance. Like, I was thinking, I didn't know. Like, I had no idea. And then it was really more based off of who was coming out in that class, how I did that season, and what teams in the NFL might need kickers that year. And it all worked out. I had a good season. I had guys I thought I can compete with coming out with, and there were teams that needed kickers. So it just worked out that there was really no point in me staying another year in college, because am I really going to get drafted that much higher than I would have? Not knowing, I didn't know where I was going to get drafted at that point, but the odds of me getting drafted higher, like the risk reward, I could go in college and have a crap year and then just drop. And so it was more about like just timing wise, what worked out better.
Kind of talk about, since we talked about high school a little bit, I definitely want to hear more about the process of, you talk about playing soccer and then the dream, like it was a late dream to go to LSU.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about just, a little bit about your upbringing and then like playing in soccer, and then try like maybe comparing that to, like, I don't know if there is a moment in soccer where it's like the pressure's on you, and even like at LSU where you hit the game winner in the fall against Florida, but also you hit a game winner with the Browns against Carolina. Kind of just, talk about maybe your upbringing, a stage in your life that maybe prepared you for those pressure moments. And then like how like football, like you finally realize, okay, football is like going to be my path.
Yeah. So grew up, started playing soccer when I was like 4. My sister played, she was a goalie, she was a year older than me. My little brother played soccer a little bit, but not too much. So me and my sister really competed a lot. Played that all the way up until my junior year. I ended up quitting after the high school season because committed to LSU, and they kind of wanted me to stop. I had some injuries going on from like kicking too much and stuff like that. So I kind of set soccer down. But I wouldn't say like my job in soccer was not comparable. Like I'd say the most comparable to a kicker is almost being a goalie in soccer, because you're all on your own. Like if a goal goes in, you're going to be the first person people look at and stuff like that. But like that's why I think it's so different, because in soccer I was a big guy in the field. I was the captain. I was playing center back. I was honestly kind of more of like a bully in soccer. Like I was physical people and stuff like that. And now I'm the exact opposite on the football field. I'm like smaller than most, not small everybody, but like I'm not very physical on the field. I just go out there, do my job, and come off the field. And I think to a certain degree, like I kicked in high school for the football team, but to a certain degree, I think soccer was a focus for so long that I was kind of like a kid not ever touching a hot stove, like not knowing what it was really like for that to be my main focus, and for like a game winner to come up on the line and for it to be so important, that I think I kind of just like ignorance is bliss came to that, when it was like I was always super competitive, but it wasn't like I got scared of the big moment.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It was like I never knew what it was like to have something bad happen in a big moment until it happened later on. But it was, so I got comfortable in those, and I honestly, for the most part, those are my best, like the most locked in I ever am is in those big moments, and usually the best balls I hit. So I think that kind of helped it. And going into my freshman year at LSU, honestly, it didn't really matter how I did. Like I had an all right season. I had some good moments, and I fell off at the end and I had a few off kicks. But like I had some games that helped win the game, but there were a lot of games we won by like 50, so it didn't matter. So I got to build up confidence and like do my thing. And by the time LSU kind of needed me to win more games, I was ready. Like my sophomore and junior year, I had great years, and that's when they needed me more. And I felt like I could step into those big moments and be like the guy that comes save the day every once in a while.
Now, you touched on the 2019 LSU team a little bit. You're a freshman that year, and you talk about the amount of points that the offense was putting up, and a ton of points, a ton of talent on the team. Being in, in your position, obviously still a pivotal role, a key role, but being able just to watch, a Jamar, a Joe, but also now being the rivals, which is kind of funny. Yeah. But also, some of your Grant, your teammate, but being on a team with just like star-studded all SEC players, Heisman Trophy winner, all those type of things. Kind of just talk about it, what that did for you, like personally in your career, and then kind of maybe even compare it to like the Browns roster now, because I would say obviously college is different. The playing field is not really level.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, if you look at most rosters, we're very talented at each position.
Yeah.
Like in 2019 at LSU, you were.
Yeah.
So kind of just, talk about the role that you had there, watching those guys and then kind of maybe comparing it to the roster at the Browns right now.
No, yeah, it ruined like my outlook on college football. Cause you get there and it's just like, I think you just, like, I get there and I'm ignorant. I think this is just what happens. Because you're surrounded by, and at that point, I just see Jamar, Justin, Terrace, Joe, Clyde. I see all those guys as older guys. I don't see them as future, like, all first-round draft picks and, like, starters on NFL like that.
Yeah.
So I think, I think to a certain degree it was, like, crazy to get to, like, recognize that. But it was also a blessing because I got to see how those guys worked. And it, like, rubbed off on me, obviously, because I'm a freshman coming in. I'm malleable and like basically people can like what they're doing is how I'm going to work in the future. So seeing that and then seeing in NFL, it's very similar to NFL because like you're sacked at every position, but in college it's not like that everywhere. So it's like NFL is basically like LSU playing 32 other NFL,
32 Alabama every week. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that. And that's why the games are so close to the NFL. And you look at the NFL often like, how do you not win? But then you realize it's the small things that make a difference because everyone's stacked. Everyone's super good. Everyone had a talented roster. So I think that's when it comes like the culture and the small things and like the guys being where they're supposed to be at the right times and doing what they're supposed to when they're there. I think that's what makes the biggest difference in the NFL because it's the small things. Because everybody has the big things. Everybody has their star wide receiver, a good quarterback. They have a good running back. They have a good offensive line. Because there's only 32 teams and there's a lot of good players. So you're going to fill those teams up. So I think that first year at LSU kind of was like a glimpse of what it was going to be like when I got to the NFL, of like how people worked and what it was like to be around that many talented guys.
Now, does that even like, because they kind of go out there and they get a bunch of tries at it,
Oh, yeah.
They get a bunch of opportunities to catch the ball. Quarterback gets a bunch of opportunities to throw the ball. Linebackers get a bunch of opportunity to make tackles, do all those things. Whereas like for you, you may get four, a few extra points, maybe a couple, field goals, things like that. So kind of just, touch on like, and I don't want to say you have to be perfect because you talked about it. I think I read somewhere it said your goal is not to make every kick, is to make the next kick.
Yeah.
And so kind of just touch on, even in practice, like when you're like off season, you're training. When you're training, like you want the goal to be probably to make every kick. So kind of just, touch on how, the mindsets you got to have like as a kicker in that sense.
It's obviously very different from the rest of the team. And that's why people will always argue like kickers aren't real football players and stuff like that. And I understand that. Like, but we also, it's like a designated hitter in baseball or a pitcher in baseball. Like, we're very different. We don't do everything else you do, but we have our one thing that we do and it's important. So it is very like, we might not have to go out there and get beat up all the time, but we do only have one shot when we go out there. So that's why it takes a different kind of person. And that's why you'll see kickers and sometimes they're weird cats. Sometimes they're like, just like they have their weird things they do and all that stuff. And because there's different personalities like kickers, I feel like there's kind of two ways. There's either the athletic kicker that just makes it work, or there's kind of this crazy technician that's super superstitious and like has all his thing he does. And sometimes they're balances of both, but I think that's what makes it a very like specialty position that is like you have to do it when it counts. It doesn't really matter how you are in practice. It doesn't matter how you are in warm up. You can try and simulate it, but I know plenty of guys that honestly kick the ball farther than me, that their A-ball looks better than mine, stuff like that. But it matters what you go out there and do in the big moments in the game. And yeah, so it's even a certain degree that like you can go out there and make all like the kicks that like you're up by 20 or whatever. If you go and miss every kick, you might only have 5 of them a year. But if you miss all 5 of the kicks that are big momentum changers or late in the fourth quarter when you're trying to take a lead, that's just as bad as the guy that's even worse than the guy that's 75%, but he's made some of the big kicks. So it's like, it's all about, that's why it's so mentally challenging to be a kicker, is because you have to do it in the moment and now.
Are there any weird things that you do?
I have certain things. I try to not get too locked up on them because if it doesn't work out, then you're like, oh, you got to switch it up. Like, I'm screwed on this kick. So I have my things, but it's mostly involved in like warm up and like leading up to the game. And then I have like my process I go through leading up to kicks. So I try and like be very focused on doing that right. because that kind of lets my body take over, and then it kind of more, if the process goes well, it's more likely the outcome is going to be good rather than like just focusing on making the kick the whole time, you know?
Yeah, one of my good friends, his name's Kipper Nichols. He asked me, "Do you get your toes stretched?" And I wonder, and I want to know if that's like is that even a thing that kickers do? Or
I saw that on your story. I don't know if I saw that. I'm like, wow, maybe I'm not working as hard as I need to. I don't get my toes stretched.
Yeah,
I never got my toes stretched. I have heard of kickers that get like pedicures pretty often.
Okay.
Like take care of your feet. I don't like people touching my feet. Not even because I'm a kicker. Just like it's just gross to me. I don't know why. It's just weird. I do like ankle like flexibility stuff sometimes just to make sure I'm not getting super tight. But no, I've never had anyone stretch my toes. So like I have like the good like stretch when you wake up in the morning when you like stretch your toes a little bit. But like no, nothing like that.
I got you. And then this is kind of, and this question kind of brings me back to, you obviously weren't here during this time, but obviously a lot of Cleveland fans, there are a lot of Cleveland fans. The first game last year meant a lot. Obviously, because Baker was a starting quarterback for the Panthers. And we haven't won a season opener in a long time.
Yo, you go hard. And just during that was back there, the fucking,
I want to go throw water on that dude. Like, what are we doing? How old are we? But whatever, we'll just cut that. But
Okay.
obviously, the game last year. So we get into your career with the Browns. The season opener last year. The Browns haven't won a season opener in a while. And ironically enough, you were called on to come deliver, for the Browns and for the organization and things like that, for the city for sure. And so meant a lot to Cleveland, meant a lot to the organization, just because previously Baker was with the Browns and we played him as a starting quarterback. Kind of just, touch on, and I bring this up just because of the pressure, not only you, but I feel like the Browns in general are under a bunch of pressure from the organization, from the fans, from the city, just because, obviously they're tired of losing. They, every year, Super Bowl or probably bust for the Browns and things like that, but you walk into that position and there's a little bit of added pressure. You felt it the first game of the season.
Yeah.
So kind of just, touch on getting thrown into that early on.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be pressure from the outside. And I like I've heard early on in college, like pressure to privilege. There's every kicker that's not in the NFL would love to have my job right now. Mm-hmm. And I know that. And it's a blessing to be here. And that's why it's a privilege to like be under those kind of moments. And yeah, there's a lot of added pressure from Browns fans, like every team in the NFL, it's like, how do we get to winning a Super Bowl, stuff like that. So it's every team every year wants this to be the year. And even as from the position of a kicker, like there's been struggles ever since Phil Dawson had the kicking position in Cleveland. And rightly so to a degree because it's a hard place to kick, but they've been looking for somebody to come step in and take the challenge on and be able to perform well. So it's kind of my job to be able to block that out. Yeah, easier said than done, but it's trying to focus on like my faith, like playing for an audience of one where it doesn't matter what I do in this life, that I'll be fine and I'm saved and I have salvation, stuff like that. And then I can be able to have peace in that. But also it's easy to say that again, but you are in this world and you have to do what you can in this world at this time. So it's like I said earlier, in those big moments, I've had this like weird ability that I'm much more locked in and hyper focused on like the process I was talking about. So when it comes time for those like moments, like you said earlier, that the Florida game my sophomore year, other big kicks, and then that game in Carolina, as soon as they hit that field goal to go ahead and we come to like we get the ball to start driving, I barely remember any of it. Like I'm so tunnel vision. I had people come over asking how far, and I was like, I don't care, just put me on the field, like all that stuff. And it was crazy because we got to the 40-yard line for a 58. And about 2 weeks before, I was doing my rookie dinner, and Jacoby Brissett, the lineman, happened to be upstairs having dinner at the same time. We met up and we were talking about how Stefanski, when it came to like 2-minute drive, the goal is to get to the 30-yard line for a 48-yard field goal. That's the offensive goal. And Jacoby was talking about that. I was like, what are you talking about? Just give me to the 40. Like, and it ended up being crazy because we got to the 40, and it kind of built up to this cool moment. Mm-hmm. But it's in those moments, it's like I'm able to block out. I don't think about that. I think I just get afraid in tunnel vision, and that's where I honestly need to be more being able to take that in those big moments and apply it to the smaller moments where it's like, it's a PAT, you should just make this. It should be a chip shot field goal. And that's where, like, in my career, I think I've learned that I need to try and apply that process to everything, and that helps me be more successful, just all the kicks rather than just the big ones.
Mm-hmm. And now even just like, now taking, that same mindset, and because you talk about when they ask you like how far do you need to get? I saw a video against the Bengals. It was in Cincinnati, and I think it was like 67, 68 would have been 68 would have been the number. And you were like frustrated on the sideline, like vividly.
Yeah.
And I think I like saw you say like, come on, because you wanted an opportunity to kick the 68-yarder. So talk about just that confidence, that you already have. And you talk about, were you like, even a moment like that, were you doubting? Were you ready for that moment?
No, I wanted it. And I think that's where, like, in those big moments, I just had this, it's almost backward. Like, there's other people that they do really well on the short kicks or the easy kicks, and then the long kicks, they freak out and try and do something different. And I almost just, like, let loose. And, like, who cares what happens on these crazy kicks, like, stuff like that. But, yeah, I really wanted that one. The wind was at the right, like, angle. It was going with us a little bit, and I was feeling good that day, and I felt like I had a better chance of making a 68 than we had of throwing a 65-yard Hail Mary. So, not my call, obviously, so I'm not hating on that either, but I'd also like a shot at the NFL record. So that's kind of, I was confident I wanted it, and I wish they would have solved that and given it to me, but there's the rest of my career to break those records.
For sure. So. And I want to talk about, so the mindset and then the confidence that you have to go into, those type of kicks, whether it was a Carolina one or whether you wanted the Cincinnati one. Obviously, there's a Chargers one that obviously didn't go your way, that didn't go the Browns' way. Kind of touch on the learning points that you take from each moment. Like, when you're in that moment in Carolina, you make it and we win the game, but there's obviously still a learning point in that moment. And then obviously with the Chargers, we missed that one, but it's not the end of the world. There's still more games. There's still more games in your career. Kind of touch on those both learning points.
I think the important part is that you might have a roller coaster in your season. Like, there's going to be ups. There's going to be parts where it's just happening. That's just like easy game, nothing crazy. And there's going to be times you miss. I think the important part is while the season might do this or like a little bit bad games, like your mentality has to be in the middle the whole time. You can't get super high when you have a really good game, and you can't get super low when you have a bad game. And yes, the Chargers game is definitely the worst game I've ever had as like a football player. And I had prided myself on all college and up until that point never missing 2 kicks in a game because I was able to bounce back well. And I missed 2 that game. I missed a 45. I pushed it out right. It was just not a lazy swing, but I didn't attack it enough. And then, like I said, in the big moment when it came to the game winner, I wanted to go out there. I was like locked in, super locked in, and I honestly hit a really good ball. I missed. I pushed it right about half a yard, and the wind took it an extra 2 yards, basically. And I aimed for the win, but I messed up and I pushed a little bit. And I honestly hit a really good ball and missed it outside the uprights by that much. And yes, while it does suck, the outcome wasn't there. Our process was online. It's just not always going to be perfect. So to an extent, yes, that game sucked and it hurt. It was just like right in the heart. Like, I want to win for the team every time. I want to step up on those big moments, but I also can't just absolutely like kill myself, or not kill myself, but like get down on myself in those big moments if it doesn't go my way. Because it wasn't the moment that got to me. I missed it by that much. So that was a hard one to bounce back from, just mentally. But that's the kind of thing to have. It's a 17-game season. Like, you're going to have to pull yourself out of some rut at some point.
And even, you're lucky for you get to see Justin Tucker twice a year.
Yeah.
Obviously in Cleveland once and then in Baltimore. Have you, because I've asked some other players, like, obviously, you're a fan of football. You're a fan of the game, especially kickers. And there may be someone who's an exciting player, like if you're playing against Nick Chubb or if you're playing against Lamar Jackson or someone like that, like you may want to take time to, stand there and watch what they do to see, how great they are. Do you ever take time to, watch maybe other kickers in the league, whether you're playing against them or maybe on film to learn from them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I watch too much film of other kickers. I've seen film of other kickers over the time, like growing up, like developing my game, stuff like that. But also everyone's a little bit different, so everyone's going to do it like slightly different, just like quarterbacks, everyone throwing motions, stuff like that. But yes, it is cool to see Tucker in game, to see how he does. But it's also, I think the cooler part of it is to see how Tucker is, in my opinion, the best to ever do it kicking wise. This sounds bad, but it's cool to see him fail in a way that you see him fail and he bounces back. and he's still really good at what he does. Him failing doesn't define him. Him coming back from that defines him. Because, like, when we played him in Cleveland, we both had off games, and he missed 2 in Cleveland when it started snowing and stuff like that. And to see that someone as good as Tucker can also struggle in our stadium and, like, trying to perform in our stadium, it not gives me hope, but it just tells me that I'm not far off. Like, I have the ability, like, to be as good as him or better than him, in my opinion. But it's just, he's done it well for so long, and it shows you that even someone like him is human and has parts where he struggles. So it just shows you there's a human side to it, and that those people that you think are the best at what they do, the difference between you and them is this. But this happens once and they're back to being good. I had too many of this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think it's cool from that point. And yes, it's cool to see the guy you've been watching for almost 10 years now in person and get to meet him and talk to him. And there's that side of it. But also seeing the human side to it is pretty cool.
For sure. Now, really quick, how was your first experience with snow?
Trying to think which game was first.
I always wonder, like, especially for a kicker, like, but I played corner, so I played a skill position. For me, my hands might have got cold, my feet might have got cold, but I didn't really necessarily have to, like, use them. Like, it didn't matter if they were cold or if they were, if they were at the best shape. For you, like, was your foot numb, or, like, how did you adjust to that? Like, even the playing in it?
Snow in general, honestly, is better than rain.
Okay.
100%. Because, honestly, when snow falls, you can see the wind moving whichever way, and it helps you actually see it a little bit better.
Okay.
And how it might be different in different spots. But also, snow is dry for the most part until it melts on the field, but it makes it to where the ball's not getting super slick. Your plant should still be pretty good. We didn't have any snow games that were, like, piled up or anything like that. The closest we had was the Saints game, and that was more like the field was iced up real bad. So you had to focus on the plant clean and stuff like that. But for the most part, snow's not bad. It's the stuff that comes with snow, like the crazy wind, super cold weather. And it's honestly not that hard to stay warm on the sideline. We've got the big jackets and the super hot benches and, like, the torpedo, like, fire stuff. Warm-ups can be rough. Like, warming up for that Christmas Eve game, that was different. We would take, like, a few and then go back on the sideline, sit down for 5 minutes to warm up, and then go back out and do that back and forth. So that part was different. But the actual kicking part of it, it's more just, like, you have to understand you're not going to kick it as far, so you're not going to kick it as high, and you kind of got to slow down a little bit and not try and kill it. If you try and kill it, that's when stuff's going to happen. So it's more just, like, accepting that it's going to be, like, you're not going to kick it as far, and just being okay with that fact and not trying to, like, reach for, like, kicking like you do when it's warm.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just have to play the conditions and know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Now with a full year to reflect, heading into your second season, obviously Cleveland, City of Cleveland, Browns organization, I'm sure we're all excited. We all have high hopes. Kind of just, give me your, not prediction, because obviously, things happen week to week, but kind of just, talk about some things that you're looking forward to this season.
Oh, yeah. And I think, like you said, NFL is so close that this is what makes the difference, not this. So it's hard to predict what you think it's really going to be like. But from what I've seen culturally wise, and I think the small things that are important to fix, I think we've addressed those things and they've been addressed and fixed. So I think just based off that and having more talent in the building, in my opinion, I think we're obviously destined to do better than we were last year. Yes, our division is probably one of the most equally matched divisions in football. So everyone is trying to get better all at the same time. So I think, yes, we have a tough division to play in, but I can't see us doing worse than we did last year. It has to be, we are moving in the right direction, in my opinion. We had Deshaun for a full offseason and a full season. We have a much more diverse receiving room with a lot of speed. We brought guys into the D-line to address the rushing problem. I think we have a new special teams coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. It has to be moving in the right direction. So I see us being much better last year.
I want to know that, just as a fan, I kind of want to know this, and excluding the Browns, but in the division, which atmosphere or fan base was the most hectic? Excluding the Browns, because they probably don't scream and stuff when you're kicking.
Yeah. So I would say probably the Ravens, and that fan base was, like, I'd say more involved. I would say it was the end of the season for the Steelers game when we played there, and it was like we're kind of both. They were technically out of playoff contention, but they ended up being out of playoff contention. So I think that kind of adds to the fact that there wasn't crazy environment. Like, we'll play them, I think we play them Monday night, second week. The Steelers, yeah, I'm sure that'll be a little more hyped up. But the Ravens, I think, from last year's experience, was the most like hyped up fan base and kind of hectic.
I do want to ask this really quick. Prediction for LSU this year.
I'm thinking they're in the right direction as well. It's very different with Brian Kelly there, and honestly, I barely know anybody in the building anymore. Whereas cleared house and a bunch of transfers and all that new stuff with the players there. And by this time, a lot of the guys I came in with are on their way out or have one more year. So I think they're definitely in the right direction. Jaden Daniels was moving in the right direction and started playing good into the second half of the season. So I think they're going to be looking better next year.
I think that's all I got.
Heck yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about?
My golf game is crap today.
Yeah, I mean, lucky for me, I got a lot of time to practice. I'm sure the fans are glad your golf game is bad, so you can get back to kicking. So
yeah, my golf season is basically over.
Yeah, but again, Green Hawk, beautiful course, LaGrange. If you're in Cleveland area, or if you're not in the Cleveland area, come check it out. If you're coming to see a game, Cleveland Browns kicker Cade York. Appreciate you coming on. This was
having me.
Amazing. We low-key I forgot to talk about this. We got to talk about the camp. You helped me out a tremendous amount. You didn't have to do that, obviously, but we held a camp in Cleveland, Ohio. It was Varsity House Local Legends football camp, youth football camp. It was a free camp in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And we had you come out and Dimitri come out and Tyrone Wheatley, and it's also some other guys that came out, Mayor Bibb, Bernie Kozar. So it was a real Cleveland community event. But one, I appreciate you for doing that. I owe you a ton for doing that.
Oh,
but also, just talk about the work that you do in the community, whether it's, back home in Cleveland or just the need and the want to that you have for doing that stuff.
Oh, yeah, and I think that was super cool. One, I more just walked around because there wasn't any kicking stuff set up. So next time we do it,
we'll figure it out.
Or something to do with that. But I think it's important, one, because, we're in, we've been blessed to be in this position. We are not here by our own doing. I was blessed with some sort of talent that God gave me so that I would be on this platform one day and use it the right way. I think important part of that is community, not only spreading positivity when it comes to the sport, but also just in the community in general when it comes to your faith and just being a good member of the community, honestly. So that's something I'm really trying to be even more focused on moving forward. Last year I did some work with Best Buddies, a group in Cleveland that did the My Cause, My Cleats with them and did a couple events with them, which was awesome, and I love doing it. And I want to continue doing that kind of stuff. And that's why, you don't owe me anything doing that, because I love coming out in the community and, either it's you're not working with me kicking-wise, I just get to come meet people. And I ended up, there was a kid there that was kicking and wanted, a few tips on the side. So, we were talking for, 5-10 minutes. So I really enjoyed that type of stuff, and I think it'd be a shame if someone that's a professional athlete that has been blessed by so many people along their path to move them in the direction of being able to be in the NFL and not using it to do the same for other kids. Because in the Bible, it says the 3 servants, one was given 10, one was given 5, one was given 1. With whatever you're given in life, you need to use it for the Lord and use it for his kingdom. And if you don't, it's all going to be taken. So I'm trying to do my best on using what I've been given to multiply the kingdom. So, yeah.
Perfect, bro. Appreciate you.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.